What's up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. My name's Jess Barney, and I'm so excited that you're here today with me. I have got a garden tour planned, a May garden tour. I'm excited to show you what is happening in the garden and also 2 new spaces that I have been working on. If you are new here, welcome. So happy to have you. And if you're returning, thanks again for clicking on another video. A little bit about me. I grow in Zone 5B. I am just outside the city of Chicago in Illinois, and my last frost date was right around April 30th. So we are now past that. It is May 22nd right now. So we are finally starting to warm up. Like many areas of the country, we have had a very strange spring. It has been unseasonably cold for a lot longer than we thought it was going to be, and we've had a lot of rain. So the rain is good, things are growing, but the cold, some of the stuff is growing a little slowly. So we'll take a look and see what's going on. So as you can see, I've got the garden behind me. We're gonna go ahead and go kind of row by row with what's going on. And I'll tell you a little bit about what I have growing, or at least what the plans are for the space if nothing is in it yet. So let's start with this bed. This is a lettuce bed, and you'll see a couple different things going on. So you'll see that there are 3 rows here. There is stuff in the middle, but it's really not doing anything. And then I have 2 more rows of lettuce and an entire row of cilantro on the outside. Now, interesting fact about this, these 3 rows I sowed, I want to say towards the end of March, beginning of April. Then we got really cold right after it germinated. And as you can see, it has just continued to kind of stay stunted with its growth. Versus these 2 rows, I direct seeded towards the middle to end of April, and they are doing much, much better. So I think this one will be okay. I'm not sure that I'm going to get much from these 3 rows. But again, you know, that's kind of what happens when the weather kind of does its own thing. And you know, if you're a gardener, you are going to have to contend with the weather, and as much as you want it to do one thing, it's probably going to do the opposite, and you just kind of have to roll with it. Let's take a look at the next bed, which is also a lettuce bed, but this was all started indoors and then transplanted out. So you can see that this bed looks very different from this bed. So again, direct seeded. This was all transplanted out. I have a row of tatsoi here, which just looks incredible. I've got a little bit of bug damage, but that's okay. It's delicious. It's still doing well. I've got a row of bok choy. Just harvested one here this morning. This is looking really good. This beautiful, beautiful Merlot lettuce, just gorgeous. And then these 2 here are primarily grown as a leaf lettuce, but I decided to do a few heads, and it's working pretty well. They are looking lovely. So really enjoying those. I harvested one of each of these this morning, and so in its place, I direct seeded some bunching onions this afternoon. As we move over to this bed is going to be my green and yellow zucchini. And you'll see these stakes in the bed. So I actually trellis my zucchini. So as the zucchini grows, I will take garden tape that is elastic and tie up the main stem up that stake so that I can just control kind of where it is growing a little bit better. I did this for the first time last year, loved the results that I had, so I will be sure to kind of show you that process as I go throughout the growing season this year. And then in the back of the bed, I have some zinnias. These are the Queen Lime zinnias. They're going to be a beautiful kind of green, pink, yellow zinnia. I do have some violas in the corner here, which again, very stunted from the cold weather that we had. Really not doing much, but I'll leave them because I don't need this space for anything else right now. This will be the next bed that I show you, and I will uncover it in just a second, but this is insect netting. It had frost fabric on it. I switched it to insect netting about 2 weeks ago, and everything in here is looking really, really good. Now the reason I have insect netting on this bed is because it has my cabbages in it. And last year and the year before, I noticed that we just have tons and tons and tons of cabbage moths, and they really just decimate my cabbage if I don't cover it. So that's why I have the insect netting up, and everything again underneath it looks fantastic. So let me uncover it so we can take a closer look. It has just exploded with growth and looks amazing. So let's start on this end. Here I have spinach. This one has bolted, as you can see. It's got some flowers happening, and it still tastes okay. It's not super bitter. I've been trying to pick the flowers off, but it's pretty much probably at its end by now. This one still looks fabulous. These two look great. Do you see the size of these spinach leaves? I mean, this is my hand for comparison. It is the size of my hand. Let me just take one of these off. I mean, look at that. It's literally the size of my head. And it's so good. So even with the warmer weather, these are doing pretty good. I will probably, the question is going to be, Jessica, what are you going to do with all this spinach? So my plan for this is actually to dehydrate it and turn it into a greens powder so that I can add it to things like scrambled eggs. I can add it to, I really want to try to make homemade pasta with it, and just have it if I want to add it to smoothies for a little boost of nutrition. So that is probably going to be the plan for the spinach. Here I have my 2 green cabbages that look fantastic. They are starting to kind of create their heads in the middle, looking really good. The cauliflower, which is here and here, look fantastic. And then these are red cabbage, which also look really, really good. These bigger ones are all broccoli, and I am starting to get some broccoli heads, which is super exciting. And then on the end, I have some kale that I've also been harvesting from on a regular basis. I will probably end up freezing a lot of this to add to smoothies as well. I did direct sow some flowers in here, but nothing's popped up, so I'm just leaving it for now. I've got some more flowers indoors that I will probably place in here along with some other things. And nothing is in this pot right now either, so they're still empty. This bed here is about 50% full, so I do have some extra tatsoi on the end here, again, doing great. And today I set these guys up, and this is how I trellis my tomatoes. So this is a 9-foot T-post, and I take essentially chicken wire. I cut it in half into these strips, and I just zip tie it to the T-post. So as the tomato grows, I use that elastic garden tape and tie up the main leader up the stem, and then it has a little bit to grip onto on the sides with the chicken wire. This spot is open. I'm going to put tomatillos here, but they are actually going to be using a traditional tomato cage. You know, the ones with the circles that kind of are narrow at the bottom and get bigger. So that's why this is open. In the middle of the beds, I have some edible marigolds. This one is about to bloom. I have a few radishes on each side that are still going. My chives, which are all starting to bloom. Honestly, it's just beautiful. I love the color they bring to the garden. And then this is just a regular marigold. It gets huge. It will literally encapsulate this whole space. I love these. I grow them every year. One plant will literally take up a third of this bed. This bed is kind of a mix of success and not so much success. So over here I have my onions, the red onions and yellow onions. These were in my first garden tour video. The red ones look more advanced because I grew these from started bulbs versus the yellow, I started myself from seed. I was a little nervous that these weren't going to do well, but they all have started to put on some new growth. So I'm hopeful that I'll get a nice onion harvest. This next section is carrots. And you can see I've got some here, and then there's a gap. This row doesn't have a lot. This row doesn't have a lot. And then these 2 rows don't have a lot. Sadly, again, what happened was they all started to germinate, and then just as they started to germinate, we got really, really cold. And a lot of the sprouts just kind of dried up, shriveled up, and never recovered. So I've got about half the carrots that I was hoping for. But again, that's just kind of what happens when you garden. And then next to the carrots, I have my beets, which again, you can see kind of very sporadic. I got some good germination. Others just kind of didn't do well in these crazy temperatures that we had. But some of them are looking really good. So I'm still hopeful I will get a few from here. So along with the unseasonably cold temperatures, about 2 weeks ago we had unseasonably warm temperatures. We had 4 days that were 95 and higher. So again, I think a lot of things in the garden are just kind of freaked out right now, and they don't really know what season it is and what's going on. Again, the next 2 weeks looks a little bit more steady temperature-wise and a little bit more typical for this time of year. So I'm hopeful that what is going to be starting to grow is going to have a nice success rate in the coming months. So these next 3 beds in the back have my arches between them. And what I have planted on these arches, so this first one here that I'm standing under is going to have all of my cucumbers, so pickling cucumbers, Marketmore cucumbers, a cantaloupe, and I also planted a few cucamelons seeds. I wasn't going to plant cucamelons, but I decided to. They are fun to grow, but they grow really quickly once they get going. They take over everything, and 1 plant is enough for 10 people. So fingers crossed that it does well, but I can also keep it under control. So also in this bed, I have radishes that I literally sowed probably 2 months ago, and I am just finally starting to get a few. I don't need the space right now, so I'm probably going to leave these. We'll see if they go to seed, but that is what is in this section. Here, I actually planted 2 rows of bush beans, and literally 3 came up, and the minute the beans came up, the rabbits ate them. The rabbits ate every single one of my beans last year. 2 years ago when I planted beans for the first time, nothing bothered them. But last year I lost all of them. So I have a new space that I'm growing beans in, which again, I'll show you in a minute. But I did try to put some in the bed, and unfortunately it just didn't work. So that's okay, I've got a backup. And then I have my okra in the middle here. And then just on the corners, I have some sunflowers. These are gonna get really big and tall, 6 or 7 feet. They're beautiful, beautiful yellow sunflowers. And then I have some nasturtiums here, really as a trap crop. So I'm actually not a fan of nasturtium. Honestly, can't stand it. I love arugula, not a fan of nasturtium. But I'm growing it because it is supposed to, again, be a trap crop that really helps with some of those more invasive pests, particularly ones that can battle or bother your cucumbers. Last year, I lost all my cucumbers to, I can't remember what it was called, mosaic virus, something else like that. I get really bad cucumber beetles. So I'm hoping the nasturtiums work to kind of combat some of those pests that I noticed in the garden last year. So again, really just growing them for pest control and to see if that works. So in this next bed here, I've got some more nasturtiums here and on the corner there. And then in the middle, this is all going to be flowers. So the 2 in the back here are Benary's giant zinnias. I have a cosmos right here. Cosmos, whatever, Cosmo. And then here I have calendula. And this has been the most exciting thing I have grown this year. First of all, look at how many blooms, how many buds are on this one plant already. There are 5 here. That's incredible. And the colors, this is stunning. It is just beautiful. So that is called the Playtime Mix, and it is from Baker Creek. Again, so glad I grew it. I am gonna try to maybe make some salves with it later in the summer. But really, I just wanted to try a new flower, and I absolutely love it. I also seeded some chamomile right here, which I do see. You probably won't even be able to see it on camera, but there are a few teeny tiny little baby sprouts, so I'm hopeful that that will continue to progress. And then here and in the pot here, I have bachelor buttons. This one was planted out first, so he is a lot bigger, but I am really excited to see how this guy does. It is supposed to be a super vibrant blue color, which is not a color you see a lot in the garden, so really excited to have those. On my second trellis here, I have a combination of spaghetti squash and also honey nut butternut squash, which is a little bit of a more like personal size butternut squash. So again, nothing's germinated, but it has all been direct seeded about 4 days ago. In the corner of this bed, I have another patch of chamomile that I sowed here. And then in the back corner here, I sowed a bunch of dill seeds, which are just starting to get their fronds. So there is going to be a bunch of dill right here. The rest of this bed I will likely use for my peppers and my eggplants, which still have about 3 weeks before they come outside. I planted them, sowed them indoors pretty late, and they are just about to start hardening off probably in like a week. I have some more zinnias here. These are the El Dorado. They are like a beautiful, big, kind of salmon colored coral pink. So excited to see those bloom. And then my snap pea forest, as I call it, right here. These are looking really good. Super excited for those too. So again, that other section in that bed will probably be for my peppers and eggplants. And then I will also probably put a few peppers and eggplants into these lettuce beds up front in a couple weeks, because it'll probably be too warm by then. The lettuce will start to get bitter and it just won't be as enjoyable. So I'll switch it out to something else. So let me show you some new spaces to the garden. And the first one is my additions to my patio. So one of the items that I treated myself this year was a green stalk. I've been wanting one of these for a while. They had a sale for Mother's Day. I took advantage, and this is actually what I am using to grow my bush beans in this year. It is vertical, the rabbits can't reach them, and it is doing fantastic. Let me show you. So I think all but 3 pockets germinated, which I will take. I will have plenty of beans here. So this row, the 3rd row, and the bottom row, I believe are the the Contender. It's either Blue Lake or Contender. It's just a traditional green bean. And then the 2nd and 4th rows are Dragon Tongue bush beans. So excited to have this filled in. And really excited to see how this grows in the green stalk. And then next to that, I have what I decided to do was put together an herb garden on my patio. I don't typically do a lot of container gardening. I don't really know why. It's just not something I do a ton of, but I am trying to maximize not only my space this year, show different ways that you can grow for all of you, also over my Instagram. Little plug, if you don't follow me on Instagram, please follow me. It is Barney_homestead, so just leave off the. I would love to see you over there. But again, just wanted to kind of share with people different ways that you can garden. So I've got the vertical gardening in the green stalk. We've got our traditional raised beds, got some containers, and then the third place I'll show you in a minute is another way to garden. But let's get back to these containers. So in here, these are just some chives that I already had in here. So I replanted them, put some new soil in. I bought another rosemary, and then this is parsley that I direct sowed. So just gonna wait for that to germinate. This plant is gorgeous. Do you see the variegation on this? It is beautiful. This is pineapple mint. I picked it up today at Lowe's. I've been eyeing it the last 2 or 3 times I've been at Lowe's, and today I officially purchased it. But oh my gosh, the aroma of that is amazing. So it's supposed to be a little bit more of like a sweet mint, good in like lemonade or garnishes, maybe desserts. So excited to see that grow. And then next to that, I have another mint. So I have got, this is sweet mint. Now, I have never grown mint before because I have heard the horror stories of how it just is super invasive and takes over all of your growing spaces. So they are in pots, but I decided to try them out. Obviously, they will be okay and not be invasive in a pot, but excited to just, you know, have another herb on hand to try. In this pot and this pot, I direct sowed today some more dill. Can never have enough dill. I love it in dressings and when I'm making my pickles in the summer, so I need tons of it. And then in this one here, this planter box, I've got 3 different basils. So I've got Genovese basil, a purple opal basil, and then a lemon basil. So that is going to be just a basil bar, I guess I'll call it. So that is what the patio is looking like. Again, all of that is pretty much new as of today. I just put that in. Now I also have 2 planters right by my stairs in the back here that are also herb planters, because I think if you're gonna start gardening, herbs is a great place to start. They are super versatile. You can use them fresh, you can dry them, and they are a way that you can use something from your garden every single day. I heard this, I can't remember who it was, but it was another YouTuber who said, challenge yourself to use something from your garden every single day. And herbs is one of the ways that I challenge myself to use something from my garden every single day. So in this planter here, I have another rosemary. I've got a sage, I've got some dill in the middle, thyme, and parsley. I purchased these 2, and all of this I grew from seed. And then on this one, I've got oregano that I grew, another thyme, and another parsley, dill. So all of that I grew, and then my viola. So this one has finally bloomed. Look at how beautiful that is. Stunning. So again, part of gardening too is just having fun with your space and growing things that bring you joy, bring you happiness. So the viola is definitely very, very pretty, and I'm excited to have it blooming. Now, I also utilize this space every year. And again, another way to kind of think about your spaces a little bit differently. If you are limited on yard space, or again, you don't want to spend the money on a ton of containers for your patio and soil, I get it. I totally get it. When I moved into this house 7 years ago, my first garden was actually right on the other side of this walkout. There was no landscaping in it, and that's where I put my garden. And I've since filled it in with some landscaping. But again, think about ways that you can use some of the spaces maybe around your house, or if you're in an apartment building, maybe you have a common area that you can use as well. But this is where I have some tomatoes. So I have planted these out. We'll see how they do tonight in the colder temps. I think these will be okay just because they are by the cement here, which tends to retain some heat. But these are cherry tomatoes. So this is Sun Gold, and then this is a Super Sweet 100. It's a hybrid from Johnny Seeds, and then I believe the Sun Gold is from Botanical Interests. And then I have the rest of my tomatoes right down there, which again will get planted in a day or two. So let's take a little trip over to the other space, which is actually on the side of my house. So this space, there hasn't really been landscaping in ever since we moved in 7 years ago. Haven't really known what to do with it. It's very weedy most of the time. So I finally decided to turn it into a perennial herb garden. At least that's my hope. Not just herbs, but also flowers that bring beauty and pollinators. So this is what it's looking like right now. So the great thing about this space is this door goes directly into my kitchen. So it's kind of like a little kitchen garden that I'm excited to have. But there were some hostas here that I pulled out. There were some daylilies in the back. That was really the only thing that grew. And then there were some random tulips here that would come up every spring. I pulled all that out, and I have since updated it with things that I have grown from mostly seed, some things that I've purchased. So these are actually phlox that come back every year, reseed themselves, but I've got oregano here. I have anise hyssop, which is a medicinal herb, also a beautiful flower. I have another sage. I have 3 chive bunches. Again, love that these flowers are bringing some beauty to the space. I have 4 salvia plants that I grew from seed. They are very slow growers, so we'll see what kind of materializes this year, but I planted this one a while ago and it's really starting to take off. I have some more violas. This one actually bloomed the other day. Just so beautiful. I have some lavender in a couple places, and then the back I kind of broadcast a bunch of random flower seeds. Not a ton came up, a few did, and then I plugged in some extra zinnia, cosmo, and marigold that I had that just didn't fit in the other garden. But you can see some of it has germinated here. So I'm hoping that back area will just kind of be a big kind of flower display, and then the front area will be kind of your lower lying herbs and perennial flowers that hopefully will come back year after year. So that is going to do it for this garden tour today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed getting to see the garden and see some of the updates. I am super excited. It is just growing at lightning speed right now, and I am just really excited to continue to get things in the ground. I think the June garden tour will look even more lush, full, and abundant. And I am just, again, just so excited when I'm able to grow things. So thank you so much for joining me in my garden today. I hope you enjoyed these updates. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments for me, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, everyone.